All right, we are live. Happy Friday, everyone. I am so happy to see you all here. Christina, I see your messages. Happy Friday. I see a couple other comments, but the names aren't coming through on my end. But thank you all for being here. I'm Avery Bradford, for those of you who don't know. I'm head of programming and events for Female Founder Collective and the 10th House, and also work on the advisor side of the North. If you don't know what the North is, definitely go to findyournorth.co and check that out. If you're looking for one-on-one advising from former CMOs and CROs and COOs and current ones and investors, there's CTOs, yeah. Really anything that you're looking for mentorship and advising on, it is inside of the North. Before we get started, I'm going to do a couple intros. Going to add Rebecca to the stage here. Happy Friday, Rebecca. I know you've got a sick kiddo at home, so we're going to navigate that the best we can. It's the name of the game. So we've got Alison Wyatt here. She's the CEO of the 10th House, the North, and Female Founder Collective, which we're going to get into how the heck you're doing that all. She's also an angel investor of some of your favorite companies and a former CRO. We also have Rebecca Minkoff here. She is the co-founder of the 10th House and Female Founder Collective. She's also the creator and designer of her namesake brand. She's an author, a podcaster, a mother, which we'll see today, and a soon-to-be mother of 4. So glad that we have you here. This is probably going to be our last event with you for a little while. So really glad to see you here today. I want to make one quick announcement before we get into your questions. Applications are now open for FFC's private membership community, the 10th House. Inside of the 10th House, female founders can foster meaningful connections through networking events, both in person and virtually. There are roundtable events, so many different ways to learn from and connect with other women. There are vetted resources, both on demand. We have our pitch deck bundle, which is really exciting. It goes A through Z of how to raise capital, including pitch deck templates, 2 pitch deck templates, and over 15 workshops for you to learn from.
And the glossary is...
Yeah, the glossary is huge. It's like how to talk the talk while you're trying to walk the walk, which is really exciting. We also have over, I think, 150 on-demand events, and we have multiple live events each week. And then we also have events with venture capitalists, both private pitch sessions and fireside chats for you to pick their brains. And speaking of picking brains, that's what we're going to do with the 2 founders today. But quickly, before we get into that, as a treat for you joining us live, I do want to say that you can use code FFCEvent15 when you apply for the 10th House to get 15% off. So this is exclusive for those who RSVP'd for this event today and who are attending this event today. And I'm just going to say a quick shout out. I see Stephanie, Michelle, Andrea, Christine, Diana, Sasha. Thank you, all of you all who are commenting in the chat. And yes, we do have Female Founders Day on March 23rd in LA as well. So we're all super busy, but taking time to answer some of your burning questions today. Let's just hop right in. You'll get a shout out if you RSVP today. I am going to shout out your name if you submitted a question. So Michelle B wants to know, what scared you the most when starting your business? Rebecca, let's start with you.
With my first business, it really wasn't a matter of what scared me. I think when you're really young and naive and I have nothing to lose, at least for me, there was no fear. I think the fear came later when you have a family, when you're taking risks, that really kicked in. So I think just how do I keep something going that's going to enable me to live my life and pay for, other people's lives, employees, kids, nannies, all that stuff. So that was probably the scariest, especially when we hit the recession in 2008. It was like, can we exist? Can we stay in business? So that was probably the first scary part. Prior to that, it was just blind ambition.
Yeah. I think that's huge, thinking about the responsibility that you take on with others through starting a business. So that's huge. What about you, Allie?
Well, I was going to say the same thing as Rebecca about with the first business. It was blissful ignorance, where you just have no idea the kind of payroll you're going to have to maintain, the people that you're going to really have to take care of. This isn't just about you. If you are building something that is bigger and you're not a solopreneur, I think that's where it gets a little scary is, and even if you are a solopreneur, it's paying your bills, as Rebecca mentioned, but it is so much harder than I think it comes across when you hear these incredible stories in the media of these people just making millions of dollars on selling their business, or, raising tens of millions of dollars. There's so much work that goes into that, and there's so much responsibility that comes with it. And so I would say, I wasn't scared, initially with the first one, and then you realize very quickly what kind of responsibility it means, and then you become scared, and then you keep, that's really kind of your motivation in a big way.
Yeah, it's kind of like Rebecca said, that blind ambition. You don't really know what you're getting into until it starts to happen. Amanda P has a great question, and that is, what are the biggest variables to consider when making the decision to be a solopreneur versus a partnership? This is a great question for the two of you because you are co-founders, Female Founder Collective. So what went into that thought process, and why not go it alone? And Rebecca, you can talk both sides of the table because you did go it alone in other ventures. So let's start with you. Oh, you're muted. Let me unmute you. There we go.
My screen is frozen. Am I unmuted?
Yep, you're unmuted now.
Okay. I think if you are lucky enough to have both sides of the brain, creative and business, then go it alone. But I do think it's a lot lonelier to do things on your own. Yes, you only answer up to yourself, but at the end of the day, when you want to turn to someone and you don't have that person there, with my company, I did it alone for many years, and then brought in my brother as my co-founder, and then obviously with Allie and I. And it's just nice to have a partner with strengths that I don't have. And so I think really taking an assessment of what are you best at and what do you want your role to be, and what are you terrible at, and can that co-founder be your complement? Because I think it's stronger together. But if you are going to have a partnership, it's important to constantly be on the same page, ask each other what they need and want, and things change over time. When I had my first kid, my brother still wanted, he had the expectation that he was working till 9 at night. Why wouldn't I? And I was like, oh no, buddy, I'm going to go home and be a mother. And so, it's having those honest, sometimes hard conversations with your co-founder as things evolve and shift.
Yeah, I don't think the loneliness piece is talked about enough. We have multiple people in the chat right now. Kessie, Christina, they're all agreeing that it is extremely lonely. So that is something to factor in. We hear a lot about the skill sets that you bring to the table, but not a lot about the loneliness piece. So that's really great. What about you, Allie? What thought process went into solopreneur versus partnership for you?
Well, I think it's also knowing who you are. There are a couple things I would say. I would say, don't get a partner just because of the loneliness factor, because then if that's your primary reason, you're going to end up with someone who has the same skill set. You're stepping all over each other. And because you're going to, sort of want to be around people that are fun to be around, maybe, it's just, you have to put so much thought, as Rebecca said, into who that partner is, and really know yourself and what you want to do in the business. In addition to what she was talking about with strengths and weaknesses, it's like, where do you want to spend your time? Where do you not want to spend your time?
Yeah.
And if you are looking for a partner, it's finding somebody who likes to spend their time where you don't like to spend your time, likes to spend their time where you don't like to spend your time. So it's, the loneliness piece is a really big one. My husband is like, I really don't want to hear anything about your work. And so when I talk to him about my work, he just kind of zones out. And if I didn't have a partner, that would be really, really tough, because at the end of the day, it's not your spouse or your partner or your best friend's job to sit there and hear you like vent about things going wrong or like play out scenarios with them. But that is something wonderful where it's like, I can call up Rebecca and be like, this is the situation we're in. Here's my gut on what I think is the right way to handle this. What do you think? Or when you have like a partnership, and I mean partnership by way of a client that gets really hostile, or which is not that common, but frankly in the business that we're in with brand partnerships, you can have scenarios where there are disagreements, and it's really hard to be the solo founder in that respect. And then you have each other's back, which is like a really wonderful thing. So I would say really think about who you want that partner to be from a profile standpoint, their skill set, their personality type, and keep the communication really strong, and ensure that you guys are aligned on long-term goals for yourselves personally as well as with the business.
Yeah, and I think those hard conversations that you get to have with your co-founder kind of leads back to that loneliness piece. You do have someone there to catch you when you fall, but also be there when you just want to talk S. And it can be nice to have that. And I saw, Michelle, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, that you're looking for a co-founder. Definitely head inside the 10th house if you're not already. There are so many amazing women inside the 10th house who are also looking for co-founders who have multiple different skill sets. So check that out for sure. Okay, great question from Ray H. Ray asks, how do you manage your own expectations for your future and pace yourself when you have an evolving vision? Is this challenge something you've encountered personally or have observed within your network? Rebecca, this is a great question for you because I know your vision has evolved and so have your companies.
First off, I think it's fully okay to let your vision evolve and change, and it can change mid-year, you can change mid-month. And I think that some people go, well, I had this one goal and that's what I planned for, and that's the only thing that I now need to hit. But let it evolve and change. I think you often need to aim a lot higher than you've ever imagined in order just to meet the goal that you want to hit. I think that I've found that when we want to do X amount in sales, we think of a number way beyond that, because lots of things can happen in the world and universe, and you just have to be prepared to always be shifting. And so it doesn't mean that if you didn't, if you say I want to do $1 million in sales this year, let me go for 10 million, and you don't hit the 10 million, you're a failure. Keep it in the back of your head what's real, and then aim a lot higher, because I think anytime you stretch and try and go beyond, you're forcing yourself to grow as well. So definitely make your minimum goal and then the stretch goal, and be focused on that stretch goal all year round, everything you can do. And when you hit your minimum goal, celebrate and make sure you stop and acknowledge yourself for that, because oftentimes we focus on the losses, and we should also be focusing and stopping to celebrate the good and what contributed to that, and how do you strengthen that over time.
Yeah, that kind of leads to the next question, which is from Stephanie Long. And this question will be for both of you. When that goalpost is always moving and when that goal is always going up, Stephanie asked, how long did it take for both of you to realize you had, quote unquote, made it? How long did it take for you to get there? As a fairly new entrepreneur, it can get discouraging to constantly hear no all the time. So Allie, let's start with you, and then Rebecca, I'd like to circle back to you and how that evolves when the goal is always evolving. So Allie, let's start with you there.
Well, I think it's really hard to feel like you've made it as an entrepreneur. Because just what you said, the goalpost is always moving. So you're always focused on, in order to keep achieving and keep your business running, you always have to be focused on what's that next goalpost. That said, I think, as Rebecca mentioned, it's a really important thing to celebrate the wins, and when you do hit things, and make a ceremony around that, because you're moving so quickly when you have your own company, and your head is so down and you're so focused on what's ahead that sometimes you lose sight of how far you've come, right? You're climbing this. I saw this image yesterday on social where it talked about how there was a person standing there looking at this mountain thinking, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. But then when you zoom out, you see how far that person's come. They're almost to the peak. And we actually had this moment at Refinery where refinery, when I started, we were literally in a disgusting basement with rats and gigantic roaches that would make, the history books. And we, pedaled our way out of it. We kept upsizing our office, and that felt like, a big win to show that, like, wow, we have all these employees now that we've, created a business to support. But there was a moment in Miami at Art Basel where we would do an annual party, and it was the third annual party, and we had a line around the entire Miami block, which was like huge. There were thousands of people that were trying to get into our party, and that was when we were like, wow, like we've made it. And then we put our head down and we're like, okay, so what's the next milestone? But I really think it's taking stock of how far you've come and celebrating it, and then looking to what's next and creating the new goal of what making it means.
Yeah. Rebecca, I'm curious to know what your answer would be, because as someone looking on the outside in, I know you kind of had a big moment where someone wore your t-shirt on television. I'm curious if that was the moment where you felt like you had made it, or if it was something else.
I think that the term making it sets everybody up to fail. I think that in the beginning, making it for me was not having to call Chase and check to see if I could afford to go out to dinner, literally, or if I was going to warn my friends like, yo, we're not splitting the meal because I just had a Diet Coke. Making it to me was like, yeah, we can split the meal even though I just had a Diet Coke. And then it was like making it was not having roommates and being married. And then making it was taking a vacation or getting a t-shirt on a major celebrity or a bag. And so I think that you have to look at it. There's not one made it. There's series of constantly improving events and outcomes, hopefully, if you're going in the right direction, of things that you never thought would happen that are like, oh my God, it's like what Ali said. You're suddenly almost at the peak of the mountain, but you didn't realize it. So I think to reframe these wins as little moments of making it, because there isn't if you're doing what you love and you have really high goals and you're really motivated, there isn't an end game. Mm-hmm. Even if you sell your company, you'll, from anyone I've met who has sold their company, there's no satisfaction of just, I'm going to be on the beach forever with my feet up. I haven't met that person yet. They're looking for their next deal, their next investment. What are they going to do? And so I think it's just take those little making it moments as the reward for how hard you're working.
Absolutely. That's kind of the curse and blessing of being an entrepreneur. There's always something next, but that doesn't mean you can't appreciate what's happening right now. Erica L. asked a great question, and that is, how do you know when it's time to hire? And when hiring, what are the top 3 questions to ask candidates? I'm going to split this question up between the two of you. Let's start with you, Ali. What are the top 3 questions to ask candidates? And then if you can't finish the 3, Rebecca, you can hop in and add another question to that.
Yeah, I have to think of what the 3 questions are. I would say high level, in a startup, the most important thing is attitude when you're looking for talent, because at the end of the day, you would much rather have somebody who is passionate and gritty and is going to be flexible than someone who is totally polished and has a really amazing pedigree and this incredible resume, because those have been the people that end up really thriving and growing inside of a startup environment. I would say it also depends on the position, right, of the 3 questions that I ask. But one thing I tend to ask people is to sort of gauge for how motivated they're going to be in this environment and their long-term fit is what they want, right? Like, what do they want in their career? Like, for their next role and long-term, do they have any goals, aspirations, or dreams? Because that's what you're aiming for, right? What motivates people every day to come into work and work as hard as they do? And that way, they're also going to be continuously happy in their role with you if you're ensuring that you're aligned to, and the positions aligned to what their aspirations are as a professional and also personally.
Yeah, that's such question to ask because happiness is huge. And that,
Yeah.
will show longevity within the business, and you want those 10-year people to be with you along the way. So gauging how happy they're going to be, I think is overlooked a lot. Rebecca, would you add any questions to that?
I think I would just want to add questions that enlighten me as to if they're being realistic about their goals. I've met a lot of mostly younger generation who don't want to work that hard, want to work remotely, but they want all the vacation days. They want the raises every couple months. They just have these expectations that aren't necessarily aligned to hard work. And I only know hard work as the way to get what I want, and strategic work. And so it's making sure that who you're hiring has that grit in their eye, who has that hard handshake and is like, yes, I am aware this takes a lot of work and it's not cushy when you're working at a startup. And I'm the ball player who will take on anything. I think when you look at, some examples of some stellar employees we've had in the past, there is that just willing to do it all, willing to take it on. They don't go, well, that's not in my job description. You know what? When you're at a startup, everything is in your job description. So you want to get those people that have that tiger-like excitement about building something. And I think the other thing I would ask them is other people's goals change. We had an employee start out as a receptionist and then went to PR and now is running ops, Elizabeth, for FFC. So her goals changed from a fashion company to a female founder collective. And so it's like, you want to know constantly if someone's going to have their own evolution and change so that you can be best prepared. And you're not surprised when they're like, yeah, I quit because you never listened to me, or you never heard me, or you never asked me what I wanted. So just constantly sort of checking in to make sure that their goals and yours are aligned, and how can you make it work if they're worth keeping on.
Yeah, the check-ins are huge because hopefully they are evolving and growing, and hopefully their goals are getting bigger as the company is getting bigger. So I love that. Lizbeth asks, how would you go about business credit as a startup? Is it something we should prioritize or focus on, or are there other ways to generate revenue? Allie, I'm going to pass this one to you.
I don't know if I understand the question. Business credit?
How would you go about business
like getting credit lines for your business sort of thing?
I would assume so.
I'm going to actually flip this to Rebecca, because I know that that's something that you've dealt with in the past, specifically at Rebecca Minkoff. We've never sort of been in that position in any of the companies I've been at, because we've been mostly, other than FFC, we've been funded. So you're sort of in a different category.
Yeah.
Without knowing the exact details of the business, we funded the beginnings of Rebecca Minkoff on a credit card. And then, some people advise against this. My brother took out a mortgage on his house because we couldn't get a loan. But he could see that the business was growing and it had product market fit. There was an appetite, there were orders. So it's not like it was this, hey, I'm going to mortgage my house for inventory I've never sold that no one's ever asked for. So I think he felt a comfort in that. And then when we did hit $500,000 in sales and we did have wholesale partners, we were able to get credit through an institution called a factor, which loans against purchase orders. Purchase order financing is a way. And then when you get bigger, then of course the banks are like, yes, we'd love to work with you. The landscape from 17 years ago has changed a lot. So whether it's friends and family, angel rounds, a mixture of credit card and mortgages, or crowdfunding, I think you just have to be creative. But honestly, I advise a lot of companies, I'd rather you grow slower and use your profits to grow your business and ensure that you have a product people want and is selling before you go try and get all this money for something that you just have no idea if it's going to work.
Yeah, that was the key takeaway from what you just said for me, is make sure that you have traction first, no matter what form of revenue or credit or investment you're going to look to.
And I was going to say, any bank is going to ask about that too, right? Is you're going to have to set up some projections that are in forecasting that's super clear and that is very achievable.
Yeah.
from a growth perspective, as
Oh,
opposed to what you might throw out there for VCs.
Yeah, this leads right into the next question, actually, so this is perfect. Rhonda Davis says, hi, my question is for Allie. I've been bootstrapping, but I personally am ready to seek investment, preferably from an angel investor, which you are. How do angel investors go about finding new companies to invest in? Are online platforms really the best place to start?
You know, it depends on your industry, because I think from an angel perspective, a lot of times angels want to participate or invest in businesses or industries that they understand, and that they have experience in. And so I always advocate for, honestly, LinkedIn, going on there first and finding people that you really respect in that particular industry that could be great for your advisory board. And those are the type of people that will also probably organically want to invest in your business, because they understand how to operate it or how to affect change in it. And so it's a really great way to connect with them, just on a level of like, I'd love your advice. I'd love to talk to you about what I'm building, maybe get you involved. And then organically can become more of a transactional relationship once they understand more about your business. But I always think that that's a great way. And even like I've made investments based off of people that I found on Instagram as well. So it's wherever sort of you're spending your time and you want to find amazing professionals in a space, and then do your best to try to find warm leads or people that you know that are already connected to them that might be willing to introduce you.
Yeah, and there are some people in the chat saying good advice on borrowing money. From your previous point, Rebecca, that it terrifies them. So I think this approach that you are presenting here, Allie, kind of takes a little bit of that fear out of it, because at least you know who these people are and what you're getting into, and it's more relationship based and a little less transactional. I think that that'll help take away some of the fear some of you all are mentioning in the chat. Jenna J asks, what's the number one attribute you look for when considering or choosing projects and people to invest in? Rebecca, I'm going to start with you. Either from, it doesn't necessarily need to be from an investor perspective, but even from the partnerships that you take on, what are the attributes that you look for when considering those partnerships? And you're on mute. Just want to say that before you answer.
Am I off mute? Because my screen is totally frozen. Okay. Today's been a day. Oh my goodness. What I look for if I'm going to invest in someone is that same grit, that same, hey, no matter what comes my way, I fucking got this and I'm going to figure it out. You know, I think when you meet a founder who is like a tiger, that's exciting, because at the end of the day, you're investing in a person and that person's ability to navigate challenges, which are going to come your way. Nothing ever is going to go smoothly or perfectly. So I think it's that. And then when evaluating partnerships as a company on the Rebecca Minkoff side, we just look for creative and innovative ways that we can bring out what they need and what we want to achieve as a company. So I think a couple of great examples.
We got a baby in the room.
Sorry. I have a kid home with maybe COVID. We don't really know, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay, you can't talk to me right now. So I think, you know, a good example is, you know, we partnered with Magnum Ice Cream over the summer, and you'd be like, Rebecca Minkoff and Magnum, how does that work? Well, we had a vegan clutch. They had a vegan ice cream bar. We came together. We did this gorgeous dinner in the Hamptons. They got to be in front of influencers and get earned media that, you know, was important to them. We got to also celebrate the launch of our vegan line. So I think you can be extraordinarily creative with partners. And again, you know, both sides sort of leaning in and figuring out where is the connectivity and how can we be creative so that it doesn't appear like SpawnCon, which I think consumers smell from a mile away.
Yeah. I'm going to move to the next question just because I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but I will say from that answer I got grit, which I've seen people in the comments section agree on the grit front, and also that it's mutually beneficial, which is wonderful. Allie, I'm going to direct this next question to you. It's another bootstrapping question, and that is, how to grow your brand when you are bootstrapping and competing with VC funded brands. So you can look at this from a couple of different angles, either literally and financially, or maybe how do you make yourself stand out against companies who are venture backed?
I will say, because Female Founder Collective, for example, we're in a pool with a lot of different VC funded products that are slight competitors, right? So I think we're one of the only ones that is bootstrapped. That said, you have to be so much smarter when you're bootstrapping because you have to be building a business that works, right? In a business that is VC funded, like you can run down a path that's like theoretical and like strategic, and that's what your investors want to see. And you can be building a business that actually doesn't make sense. It's not profitable. It's not going to make any money. And that sounds insane, right? But it happens all the time, which is so crazy. That said, as a bootstrapping business, as Rebecca talked about, like you have to have traction, right? Because the only way to survive is through running a good business. So with that, it forces you to be smarter about how you're marketing, for example, and really utilizing those channels that actually make you more defensible in the long term. So what I mean by that is your email list. Growing your email list is always an amazing idea, because those are customers that you can continuously hit that are yours, and no social algorithm is going to take them away from you. And then when it comes to things like social, having a voice that people relate to without, having to do a ton of boosting or targeted ads is an amazing way to also get your personality out there, because at the end of the day, people are also buying you when it comes to building brands these days. So I would say if you're thinking about sort of two channels for bootstrappers, those are great areas that are free to build. It's a matter of your time, of course, and your energy. But I would focus there.
I love that. I see a bunch of bootstrappers in the house. I see you all commenting that you're bootstrappers. And we have a ton of bootstrappers inside of the 10th house too, and a ton of resources for bootstrappers. And we also have a bootstrapping workshop coming up at Female Founders Day in LA on March 23rd. Shameless plug. This next question is again for you, Allie. It is what is the best approach to take to demonstrate PMF to your investors? And then will you also define PMF?
PMF?
Yeah.
I don't even know what PMF is.
Okay.
I don't think this is like this isn't a go-to term that I don't think I've seen it on decks either. Maybe I'm not hip to.
It could have been an autocorrect situation because I also did try to look that up myself so I could spell it out for this question. I couldn't find anything. So that answers my question. I'm assuming it's an autocorrect situation.
I'm like, I think it's a typo. Is what that is.
Yep. This next question is from Alison E, and that is for Rebecca. What were the top ways you marketed your brand when it was smaller? And do you think those methods still apply in today's market? Or maybe how could you transfer those approaches to today's market?
Yeah, I would say some of the methods transfer, some of them don't. We didn't have money. We didn't have, the only way to reach your customer when I started was glossy advertisements in magazines. There was no such thing as digital. And so the minute technology allowed us to reach our customer, whether it was Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, we started partnering with influencers very early on. And I still think that's a very valid way, especially micro and nano influencers who have much more engaged audiences. And they also are looking to discover brands and be the sort of cool, I found this, check it out. So you have that to your advantage when you're starting out. I would also do some research on Michelle Cordero Grant from Lively. Before she ever launched her first bra and product, I believe she had 100,000 person waiting list just based on the idea of what the bra would give to a woman. And she talks about it in many of her podcasts that she does. But, it's not just about influencers. It's about who is your tribe? Who are your proselytizers that are going to go to the moon and back for you? Who are the women that are going to have you at their Tupperware parties at their house, helping share, their love of whatever it is you're selling to all their friends. And even in the beginning, I would have friends throw legitimate handbag parties for me, where I would go to a house, I'd bring 50 bags, she'd invite all her friends, I'd pay for the wine and cheese, and I'd leave with no bags. And so I think that you can do all those things now, and they're not costly. And the minute you can do marketing, I think we all know, whether it is very expensive or not, there's the traditional methods. There's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's Facebook. And I think that when you do have those funds, you also have to have a strategy for that as well.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what Allie was saying about being a bootstrap business. And it really is about community, brand loyalty, really building this ecosystem of people who are really loyal to you, no matter what, whether you hit unicorn status or not, they're always going to be there. So, and we've heard that a lot from investors who we've interviewed over the past couple of months, that community and retention and brand loyalty are what they are focusing on these days. So that all kind of ties in together. Okay, I'm going to get to the last couple of questions. Also, people in the chat, you're so smart. Product market fit is PMF.
Oh, I've never heard it called that, but product market. Okay, so what was the question around product market fit?
It was how to demonstrate product market fit to investors when you're first starting out.
Well, I think the hard thing is there's no fast and true answer there. So make it up, which is it's actually it's nice that there's no hard and true answer, because then you can spin your own story. But what I would do though is, yes, you're making it up, but I would create benchmarks that you set internally as a business for specific timeframes, so that that within a certain time frame you've sold this many goods, or at this price point you had a certain conversion rate, and that conversion rate was higher than the industry average. Or like Michelle Cordero Grant did, you have a huge waiting list for your product before it even launches, right? So you already know that people are there and willing to pay for it. The other thing that you can do is if you're pre-revenue, it's like building that email. It's all about list building, about creating the community already, right? If you have, for example, you can go on one of the community platforms like Circle, like we're on, and start building your community there that are ready and waiting for your product. A lot of the Web3 companies have done that. So it's really all about sort of looking at what you can do with the resources you have now, and that ultimately over-index to the average. So it's better than market. You can then go and show that there's either an indication that people will spend that money at that price point, and this many people roughly, or that they already have spent a certain amount. So if you build more product at a certain unit economic, then you have a great business.
Yep. Okay, we only have 4 minutes left, so I'm going to ask these last 3 questions in more of a rapid fire sort of format. Rebecca, what is the biggest shift you're seeing in e-commerce and fashion today?
Oh my God. We do not have 3 minutes for that answer. It's becoming more and more expensive. You need to diversify. You need to find points of sale, wholesale, boutiques, pop-up shops, maybe your own stores, as other ways to reach your customer. I think that there's a huge move towards sustainability, and that has a very wide definition. Doesn't mean that everything you touch is perfect and nothing is wasted, but for your business, figuring out for you how your supply chain can be more sustainable or climate friendly or climate neutral. And then I would say that with the recession, people are really making sure that whatever they're spending their money on, they get incredible value. So now's the time to assess your price value ratio and make sure that you are going, you're giving something that they turn the price tag over and they go, oh my God, I can't believe it's blah. Because every purchase matters right now.
Yep. And if you want to learn more about sustainability, we're having a great conversation with Camilla Marcus as a LinkedIn Live on Monday, the 9th. So definitely RSVP for that. Head to our website and you can do that. Allie, rapid fire question for you. How has the climate for fundraising for entrepreneurs shifted in recent years?
It used to be all about grow, grow, grow. And you didn't have to show any sort of profit or any sort of indication that you're a sustainable business. And now investors even want to see that you could sustain your business in an environment where there aren't any funds available, which is sort of the past couple of years. We've seen these little windows where if you don't have funding and you don't have access to funds, your business could go under if you don't have a profitable one. So I think that's the major shift, is that there's a lot more expectations and showing like an actual business model that will work without constant sort of cash flow coming in from investors.
Yep, absolutely. This last question is of the times for sure. So we'll start with you, Rebecca, and that is, how do you balance early motherhood and work / how have you navigated the transition of having a career and a family?
I think that I can only speak for what stage I was in when I had the baby, the first child, and I had, I had a 20-person team. So I did take a 6-week maternity leave. I worked, I had everyone come to me. And then I went back 6 weeks early, part-time. And that was how I wanted to handle that leave. The next leave, I was like, I'm taking the full 3 months. No one talked to me. And I'm not going to lie, as an entrepreneur, I was bored and restless. And so I think for me, it's a balance of having some work to do for my own mental stimulation. And then also really being in tune with what my baby needs. I could have a baby today, guys. But I think with this one, I really, I'm going to force myself to slow down and stop. Because it is my last child, but I know myself. In a week or two, I'll be online being like, hey, how's it going? What's happening? What can we work on? And so you really just have to put blinders on and ask yourself what works for you.
Yeah.
Versus what you see on Instagram and perfect examples of motherhood. There's no perfect example. It's what works for you. And try stuff. I would try a lot of things. I'd go to work. I'd travel. I wouldn't. And I sort of assessed, well, how do I make this work for myself and with my teams? And what do I have to give up? Because you will give up stuff, right? I'm giving up the trips with girlfriends, the dinners, as many date nights as I want. And that's okay with me right now. Because I know when my kids are 12 and they don't want to have anything to do with me, like I'll get all that back. So I think it's assessing temporary times when you are going to give stuff up and being okay with it. And what are those gives?
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Allie?
I think it's about those. And I think especially, I mean, I was in a more corporate setting. It wasn't my own company when I had babies, and it was so important to communicate boundaries and honestly, I'm glad that I was in another company because I had to establish what are my boundaries? What are the things that are most important to me? And like for me, I want to get my kids in the morning and take them to school. I want to be the person that drops them off. I don't want to outsource that to a nanny. And so my mornings are really sacred, that I want that to be my time with my kids. And then I also have time in the evening before bedtime where I want to have at least X number of nights a week that I'm home and doing bedtime. And I'm the one that is the last face that they see in the evening when they're going to sleep. And then also for like work trips, as Rebecca was talking about, like for me, I'm like, I'm not gone I will never do a full week trip unless it's like a once a year thing that is maybe this huge opportunity. And I'm going super far, but like I will come back home from Europe to Los Angeles, which is like a 12-hour flight, to spend 24 hours with my kids so that they see my face and then go back to Europe again. I actually did this one time, just so that I see them in the middle of that week. And that's just it. And that was fine for me. It was a little crazy, but I would rather that than like go like that full period without seeing them. And then I actually block out my calendar And I especially did that in my first job when I had a baby. I would block my calendar so that nobody would schedule things during those sacred hours that I needed, because especially now we're all distributed. It's really important to put those blocks on your calendar so that there's no misunderstanding. Like somebody books something and you're like, and then you feel really bad because you feel like, well, now that it's booked, I guess I should probably do the work thing, even though, because there's nothing urgent about being with my kid.
Right. You have to set boundaries.
It's really important to sort of, I think, create those boundaries, create those must-haves in your relationship with your kids. And then everybody knows about them. And then I think you feel good about it on both sides.
Yep. And communicating it to your team. Like, I know I've worked with you for 2 years. I know not to set a meeting before X a.m. because that is when drop off is. So the communication is key too. Okay. Last question. I'm going to answer this one. That is from Suzanne J. Suzanne asks, what are your plans for this coming year? So I know as an organization, one of our big pushes right now, and one of the things that we're super excited about is Female Founders Day, which is happening on March 23rd in LA. So if you already have tickets, amazing. We have a handful of VIP tickets available, and then general admission is open. This is a time for us to meet in person to really learn and grow and collaborate. There are workshops, there are panels, there are breakout sessions for you to ask those burning questions to experts in your field, and we'll match you up with those experts based on what pain points you mentioned when you RSVP. So it's a truly transformational experience. I had the opportunity to do my first in-person one in March. The feedback that we got as an organization and the buzz and the energy of that day, I feel like I still feel it today. So that's something that we have going on this year. Also this year, our winter cohort closes, I believe, on January 20th, maybe sooner. Don't quote me on that. January 20th. Okay, thank you, Allie. And that is for the 10th house, for our private membership community. Check in the chat for that promo code if you're joining us live for the 15% off when you apply. It is an exclusive membership opportunity. There is an application process because we want it to be really meaningful and really transformative for the members inside of it. So check that out. And then the North, if you're looking for one-on-one advising from experts like Rebecca Minkoff. She won't be on there probably for the next 3 to 4 months, but
no, just give me a month. Just give me a month and I'll come back on.
No. We're gonna X on that. But Allie's also on there. We have wonderful investors, again, CROs, CTOs, COOs, people at the executive level, founders from across the board.
People that have grown and sold $300 million plus businesses that bootstrapped it.
Yep, and that's at findyournorth.co. You can also follow them on social at the same handle. So is there anything else that I'm missing as far as what we're excited for, looking forward to this year?
So that's a lot.
I feel like that's more than enough. Thank you everyone who joined us today. Amanda Quay, Jessica, Luz, I'm seeing Terry. Thank you so much everybody who joined us live. If you RSVP'd and didn't join us live, I'll send you a follow-up email with the link to this replay. But thank you so much and happy Friday. Have a good weekend, everyone. Rebecca, good luck with you and the sick kid, and I'll see you on the other side of new baby.
Thanks all. Have a great weekend.
Bye.